Hey, I'm Zach.
And I'm Jesse.
On today's show, Sentry mode strikes again.
Nissan agrees with Elon.
The SEC in the news again.
That and more next on episode 141 of Tesla Time News.
On Now You Know. We're sponsored by
Our wonderful, amazing Patreon patrons who make this show possible every week.
and by our friends at the solar-powered hotel in Schaumburg, Illinois, the Fairfield Inn and Suites by Marriott. It's also got 2 regular EV charging stations and 2 Tesla destination chargers.
Fantastic.
And by ecoware.us, sustainable fashion that makes a statement. Check out what we got this week. We got new designs uploaded every week, and every purchase is carbon negative. We plant a tree for every order. And you help support us here on the show.
All right, so let's get right into the news. So this first one is pretty annoying.
Yeah, check these guys out. They didn't understand how Sentry mode worked, I guess, and didn't realize that they're being completely caught on video by the Tesla. And then they proceed to not only smash their door into it, but to key it twice. Merica.
No word yet as to if these people have been identified or caught yet. It
Seems like pretty easy to catch them. We know that it was in Old Sacramento, California. So we know the place. We know they were driving a Dodge truck. And we know exactly what they look like.
Right.
So got to be pretty easy to catch them. I'm just still wondering whether this seems like it's happening all the time because we happen to catch video of it, or if it's just something it's just going on all the time, that people are getting their cars vandalized.
I think, having cars being keyed is just something that sort of happens in general. And if you don't have a camera in the car, but you don't have any video proof.
I always pictured keying was like juveniles, like teenagers, kids that had nothing better to do, like on dares and stuff. What we've been seeing so far on these cams, at least the ones that have been caught on Sentry mode, has been, I don't know, people I wouldn't have expected. Moms, adults, like
people with fully developed frontal cortexes.
Right.
That seems a little strange. I guess it just takes more stories like this so that these idiots finally hear, oh, I guess I shouldn't key a Tesla because it might see me.
It's just sad. It makes me depressed to be, sharing the planet with them.
It's the same thing would happen if you were watching the 24-hour news cycle. You'd be like, oh my gosh, there's all these murderers and accidents and fires and it's all bad. It's only because you're actually starting to see this stuff. Most of the time, it's just nobody hears about it. Nobody talks about it.
What if Elon turns on vigilante mode and the cars all share data amongst each other? They find out where these people live because they're driving around everywhere, and they just go find them and get them.
That sounds very terrifying and Orwellian, but I mean, sure, maybe you could have the car that it would actually just, how hard would it be to identify it being keyed or something like that and just start moving? It would freak people out. At the very least, it would freak them out. So maybe they would stop keying your car. Also,
if they're going to use a key which is metallic and conducts electricity, why not electrocute them?
I don't think that, again, the Tesla isn't necessarily the Nautilus from 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. I don't think it can do that.
Nautilus mode. I like it.
I'm just saying, I think that the only reason we're actually seeing the craziness that is happening to these cars is because we actually get to see it. Yeah. Normally, I think this is just happening all the time, and we were just, some person might say it, but it's not as interesting as a video where you get to see 2 boneheads, vandalize a car.
All right, so get this. The International Monetary Fund, the IMF, found that direct and indirect subsidies for coal, oil, and gas in the U.S. reached $649 billion in 2015. Do you know what that number means? I know it's hard to wrap your head around a big number like $649 billion.
It's like $500 billion.
Do you know what the U.S. spent on something else similar in 2015?
I don't know, like paper clips, like what? I don't know.
That's what the U.S. spent on the Pentagon. All of our military spending in 2015 was $599 billion.
Wait, you said 599, but you had just said 649.
Yeah, we spent more to subsidize oil, gas, and coal in 2015 than we did on our entire military budget. We could have had an entire other Pentagon, an entire other military, Air Force, Marines, Army, Navy, but we didn't. We subsidized oil and gas. And in fact, our own M3 Chris, who's on our Discord, he ran the numbers. He said the average American household sends $5,200 per year in taxes to oil companies, and that our current gas price is about $2.60 a gallon, but our taxes compensate for $4.76 a gallon. So our gas price should be $7.36 a gallon. When you go to get gas for your car, you should be paying $7.36, but you're not, because we've all, through our taxes, silently, quietly been subsidizing them.
So, okay. So, hang on. So, you're saying, first of all,
I know, it's hard to
we could have had 2 militaries.
Yeah.
Full-size militaries.
Aircraft
carriers and
tanks.
Helicopters.
Yep.
And,
Drones.
And fighter jets.
And armies of men and women.
Tanks and armored personnel carriers and guns and rockets and
Yep.
bombs and all of that. We could have had 2.
Yep.
And still had $50 billion left over.
Yep.
$50 billion.
Do you understand now why the oil and gas and coal industry is A, as powerful as they are, and B, why they don't want to give it up? Because picture this. If you're getting $649 billion every year, okay?
So that money is not from selling the oil.
No, that is just subsidies. That's the
Handed
subsidy
to
part.
them.
Yeah, just hand it to them. So do you think they want to give that up?
In a year.
In a year, I know. They don't want to give that up. Why do you think they're fighting so hard to keep companies like Tesla down? Why do you think the FUD storm is always so strong? Because if you were earning $649 billion, you think you'd go, you know what? When it runs out, we'll be fine with it. We'll live without it.
And again, if all cars become electric and there's no more pumps and stuff like that. I mean, first of all, we'd be crazy to continue subsidizing oil companies the way we do. Of
course.
They wouldn't be making any money at the pump. The only thing that you could possibly use, petroleum products for would be, petroleum jelly, lubricants, and I guess pesticides and fertilizer, maybe.
Right.
It's such a smaller market.
Right.
Energy for oil and gas and energy for transportation specifically would just disappear.
Right.
Coal as well.
Yeah.
We could have
So whenever
I'm constantly I'm like, military budget's ridiculous. We don't need these,
fighter jets.
We don't need these fighter jets we're spending billions of dollars on. But seriously, that's who cares? Keep it.
Right.
If we could double the military.
Well, and think of all the jobs. If we took that money and put it into solar and wind energy, for instance, then you would have so many people working.
This is the problem, is that the human mind, you give someone a number like $649 billion,
It doesn't
and
mean
someone's
anything.
just like, okay, $649 billion. I can repeat that words back to you. That's my brain do that. My brain do that good. Me can do that. But you can't just be like, oh, holy crap, you cannot imagine that. You would have to be like Rain Man to be like, what? $649 billion?
Yeah.
It's just...
All right, well, this new study from the Capgemini Research Institute suggests that consumer acceptance of self-driving cars, and you know what? I want to stop right there. Self-driving cars. I've been hearing this term over and over, autonomous driving cars, self-driving cars. We need an acronym. It just takes too long to say it.
Okay.
How about autonomous driving vehicles, ADVs?
What about AVs, autonomous vehicles?
Well, AVs sounds like the audiovisual club, at school, like AV club.
That's not.
No,
that doesn't exist anymore. Sorry.
So you want to call
Sorry,
it?
it doesn't happen.
You wanna call
It's
it-
not know what it's called.
There's no AV clubs anymore?
I don't know.
I think there are. But anyway, you want to call them like AVs? Comment below what we should call them, because I think autonomous driving vehicles is too long in general. We need something shorter to call them. Everything
AVs.
else has got it.
We call them EVs. We don't call them
Okay.
EDVs. We call them
AVs.
EVs.
Okay, whatever.
AVs,
Comment below.
EVs. That's the only problem, is that AVs and EVs sounds kind of similar, but at least it's not volt.
You don't want the volt problem.
Yeah, I know, but still, it's
Help us out.
Yeah.
Comment below.
Let's figure it out.
But anyway, consumer acceptance of self-driving cars in the U.S. will increase over time. That's what this new study found that consumers seem to be saying. So the preference for riding in autonomous driving vehicles is set to double in the next 10 years. So only 30% of those surveyed would prefer to drive in a self-driving car today over a traditional vehicle. But by 2029, the study found that 63% would prefer this method. So
so they built a time machine and they went into the future, and then they asked them in the future in 2029? How do they know this?
They just asked them, today, would you want to drive an autonomous driving car? Or how do you feel about doing that 10 years from now?
And people were like, oh, well, in 10 years from now.
Isn't that funny?
And
and
here's weird. I mean,
I know.
How do you know what you want in 10 years?
I know. Isn't that weird? I know. It's a weird...
Okay.
But it tells you a lot about people.
It does.
And here's a list of things that people said they would like to do when they're in autonomous driving cars. So, I mean, look at this. They said they'd like to eat while driving, shop while driving, catch up with family and friends, listen to music. But then even things I didn't even think they would think of, like sleep. I mean, they kind of realized that they'll be able to go to sleep in the cars. I think this is great, that some people are actually wrapping their mind around that it's going to change life.
So I just got my dream case, and we're going to have a whole video probably series on it because I'd love it.
Do you remind people what the dream case is?
It's a bed for the back of your Tesla. I was in the back, and I was like, I could put it in summon mode. So I did. Put it in summon mode. I'm sitting in bed, and the car moves. And I was like, this is so cool. How long before I'm just summoning it,
across the country.
And I can just be like,
I know, it's going to happen.
I can sleep while it's doing that.
It's going to happen soon.
Play checkers, do whatever I want while I'm moving.
I know.
Most people are just not thinking about cars in this way.
And this leads really well into an interview I had with Rahul Sonnad. He's the CEO and founder of Tesloop, which is that company that we've all heard of that drives from LA to Las Vegas and to San Diego in Teslas. And we had a really cool interview about Autonomy Day and all the autonomous cool features that are coming out, and he really grasps it. Here's a short excerpt from that interview.
Do you think one of the reasons why so many analysts and Wall Street people have trouble believing Elon is because they look at all the competition and they see that the competition is using a completely different model of how to do it, and they think to themselves, well, if Google and Cruise and all these other companies are doing it with LiDAR and in small restricted pre-map spaces, and you Tesla are doing it completely differently, that you must be wrong because you're going against the bigger way of doing it.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a cycle where you could tell this happened like at Autonomy Day where somebody's like, well, we talked to somebody and they said they have a lot of simulation miles, so isn't that right? And if you're not like really into it, you don't, know what really matters. And I would put myself in that category. I'm like a casual observer of autonomy technology, but I actually don't, either work in the space or really deeply technically understand it or anything. And I think most analysts are probably not much farther ahead than I am. And so they talk to 10 companies. And then I think what's most important, and this is like pervasive, is that when you work at a big company and the company's livelihood is based on some technology, it could be, I used to work at Microsoft, it was Windows. Like the idea that Linux would beat Windows was obviously wrong. The idea that iPhone would sell for $500 was ridiculous. Like that those just were not like sensible views to hold, like in the early 2000s at Microsoft. And so you get this psychology. People use Nokia and BlackBerry as examples where I was in the phone space and I'd go to conferences and be like, "Ooh, isn't the iPhone cool?" And they'd be like, "No, you can do everything there on the Nokia. You can look up the internet, you can do a Google thing here. I'll show you how to do it." Like nobody could do it, they could do it, but it's this like psychological, it's like an economic psychological brainwashing. I think there's a fundamental behavioral characteristic that we should name where if your livelihood depends on it and there's no easy way to switch boats, you're going to stick with your thesis, even if it's wrong, until it's like definitively proven wrong. Like it would be so easy for Tesla to say, we'll add LiDAR,
Right. We'll shut you up and we'll add it.
But they're like, that's absolutely not their MO. I mean, to me, this is the closest analogy here was like hydrogen. Like, again, in 2012, 2013, Toyota's all about hydrogen. And, in earnings call, somebody's like, well, Toyota's investing all this in hydrogen. Can you explain that? And they're like, no, we're totally confused. It makes no sense at all. They will realize that at some point, like it's just beyond belief. And to me, like LiDAR is the new hydrogen. It's they've just definitively convinced themselves that that's wrong. Now, I don't think it means that there's no chance they're wrong, but in their minds, they're already there. Like, their track record on meeting deadlines is horrible, but their track record on picking the right technologies and making the right bets, both economic and technical, is nearly flawless.
So the full interview comes out on Thursday, so make sure that you subscribe and hit the notification bell button so that you won't miss it, because he has such great insights into what's going on with Tesla's autonomy and robo-taxi technology.
So over the years we've been doing this show, we've been talking about Volkswagen's CEO, Herbert Diess, and he's gone from being like, diesel's the solution, to this.
So recently he said on the Die Welt podcast, I hope that Tesla survives because it is, of course, an incentive and an impulse for us. We are big, we are global, and we also have advantages in scaling, starting up factories, and rolling out the business. This will be our chance in the next few years. We will win.
And so what he's talking about here is basically the switch to EVs. Finally, after all these years of being like, EVs can never replace gas cars, consumers simply won't want it because of the convenience, and then going on to be like, diesel is so much more efficient than all other forms of transportation. He's finally said, okay, we're going to EVs. And VW as a whole has said that they are going to be transitioning to EVs.
Yeah, I mean, he agrees with Elon. He said that he personally does not see an alternative to electrification in the next 10 years. And when he's speaking about fuel cell vehicles, Diess argued that it would take 2 to 3 times as many windmills and solar modules to make the technology work. So he agrees that fuel cells aren't going to work, hydrogen fuel cells, and that electrification is the answer for the next 10 years.
Which is what Elon has been saying from the onset, which is great.
And we had a lot of pushback last week to things that we said about the ID.3, which is the new ID platform car that they're coming out with. And they pre-sold 10,000 units of. We were kind of down on VW because they put a limit of 30,000 as their first production run of the ID. And a lot of people were like, why are you down on that? They're trying to produce as many as they can. And I guess my problem is, in 2018, VW produced 10.8 million vehicles. That's how many vehicles they sold in just last year.
Wow.
So producing 30,000 cars for them is easy peasy stuff.
It should be like, oops, I produced 30,000 cars.
Right.
Whoops. It should be that easy for them.
Right. I mean, even Tesla, who's a fledgling auto company, they produced 30,000 Model 3s in 1 month. For VW to say, we're not even going to scale up to 100,000 cars by 2022, it's like, what?
I thought that you just said that there's no alternative to electrification,
right,
and your, Model 3 killer isn't going to be coming out in any sort of numbers. So, the good news is that they are finally talking the talk in terms of electrification. However, it seems like, whether they want to or not, they can't really walk the walk.
Right.
And it all really, really, really comes down to battery cell manufacturing.
Right.
None of these companies have invested heavily enough in battery manufacturing, which means that, the e-tron is being delayed by battery manufacturing. And so is basically all of the other car manufacturers. They're not able to put out enough cars in any sort of quantity.
And they ignore the two most important aspects of this new revolution that we're having in EVs, which is the charging network, which they hardly ever discuss, and autonomy.
Right.
So even if they can produce enough batteries and come up with enough cars, these cars aren't going to have the level of autonomy that Tesla has in them, and they're not going to have places to charge.
I would argue that, VW is being forced to create a charging network just because of Dieselgate. Sure. They have been forced to create a charging network, such as Ionity and Electrify America in the United States. So I think that, that might at least be taken care of just because governments had to punish VW somehow.
Okay, it's not a great network. Compared to the Tesla Supercharger network, it's pretty piddly, but okay.
At the moment, it should be hopefully growing.
I'm just saying by 2022, 2023, you're not going to want a car that doesn't have autonomy in it. But speaking of autonomy, Nissan agrees with Elon.
So there have been a lot of articles coming out recently that are like, basically some journalist watched or read an article about Autonomy Day, and they were like, oh great, a perfect article would be, is Elon really right about not using LiDAR? Because everyone's using LiDAR. Hello? You should be using LiDAR. Is Elon right? And they have a article where basically they find some expert who's like, you should really be using LiDAR. And then they go, who knows? I've seen so many of those articles, and it's very frustrating because none of them really dive too deep into the issues. They're just basically talking to a guy who's been working on LiDAR for a very long time, who's like, oh, LiDAR is really it's really the way to go, and you can't do it without LiDAR. And it's like, yeah, you're a LiDAR expert, dude.
Right.
Of course you'd say that. But Nissan has just backed Elon in the LiDAR versus vision debate.
At the moment, LiDAR lacks the capabilities to exceed the capabilities of the latest technology in radar and cameras. It would be fantastic if LiDAR technology was at the level that we could use it in our systems, but it's not. There's an imbalance between its cost and its capabilities. And that is a quote from the General Manager of Advanced Technology Development for Automated Driving at Nissan headquarters, Tetsuya Ijima.
Right. And so basically, there was a question about autonomy. How are you going to be accomplishing this? They said that they were going to be using radar and cameras, the same thing that Tesla's using. And the question, of course, because the question always gets asked, well, what about LiDAR? You got to be using LiDAR. It's nice to actually have another voice that is not Elon being like, yes, cameras and radar.
Now, it's been all over the news this week. Preliminary data has come out from the NTSB about the Model 3 autopilot crash that happened in Delray Beach in Florida, where a Model 3 hit a trailer and the top of the car was sheared off. NTSB stated, as the Tesla approached the private driveway, the combination vehicle pulled from the driveway and traveled east across the southbound lanes of US 441. The truck driver was trying to cross the highway's southbound lanes and turn left into the northbound lanes. According to surveillance video in the area and forward-facing video from the Tesla, the combination vehicle slowed as it crossed the southbound lanes, blocking the Tesla's path. The Tesla struck the left side of the semi-trailer. The roof of the Tesla was sheared off as the vehicle underrode the semi-trailer and continued south. The Tesla came to a rest on the median about 1,600 feet from where it struck the semi-trailer. The 50-year-old male Tesla driver died as a result of the crash. The 45-year-old male driver of the combination vehicle was uninjured. They go on to say, preliminary data from the vehicle show that the Tesla's autopilot system, an advanced driver assistance system that provides both longitudinal and lateral control over vehicle motion, was active at the time of the crash. The driver engaged the autopilot about 10 seconds before the collision. From less than 8 seconds before the crash to the time of impact, the vehicle did not detect the driver's hands on the steering wheel. Preliminary vehicle data show that the Tesla was traveling about 68 miles per hour when it struck the semi-trailer. Neither the preliminary data nor the videos indicate that the driver or the autopilot system executed evasive maneuvers.
So this is a lot of information, and we just want to kind of break it down a little bit. So I think that the important thing here is that autopilot was enabled. It was enabled about 10 seconds before the crash. And 10 seconds when you're driving is actually quite a long time.
Yep. And that the driver's hands were not on the wheel for 8 seconds before the crash.
Right.
So what I think is important to see here is that this was the first time during this trip that autopilot was engaged by the driver. So 10 seconds before the crash happened, that's the first time he engaged autopilot. And here's my thinking. I don't have all the data, but my thinking is if he put it into autopilot and didn't see that truck in front of him, that he put it into autopilot so that he could do something. We've all kind of been guilty of this, right? Mm-hmm. You put it into autopilot so that you can look away for a second to grab something or whatever. And my best guess, is that he put it into autopilot so that he could do something like look at a map or grab a phone or something. He didn't look up, wasn't paying attention, and his car hit the truck. Now, the key thing to remember here is that this level of autopilot, level 2 autonomy, is a driver assist function. And so you should never put a car at this stage of autopilot into autopilot and then go do something else.
Right.
You should always stay the driver of the car. So is it Tesla's fault? No, it's the driver's fault.
It states very clearly, as soon as you enable autopilot, it is still a beta feature. They are still working on it. There are still updates on it. It's not complete because when it's complete, it's going to be level 5. And often we talk about the level 5 autonomy. It's not level 5 now. It is level 2. It is a driver assist function. You are still the driver of the car. You have this little assistant who's helping you, but the assistant is not the driver.
Think of it this way. You put it into autopilot, that's the equivalent of putting a 16-year-old behind the wheel. It's as if you had a second wheel over here where the passenger is, and I was like, dong dong. So my 16-year-old is now driving the car. If I choose to stupidly take my eyes off the road while my 16-year-old is driving, I should expect there's going to be an occasional problem because it's a 16-year-old driving.
Right. It's a lot like those student driver cars.
Right.
Yes, you have the student driver who is driving the car. We don't have advanced technology to allow 2 steering wheels, but there is the extra brake.
Right.
And that is why you have the student driver instructor sitting next to the driver of the car,
Right.
because they are ultimately responsible for what the car does.
Now, a lot of people will say, Elon, you're not on high moral ground here. You can't let people behind the wheel while you keep testing your system out. But here's the thing. Let's look at the data because we have tons of it now. The number of miles driven on autopilot is now 1.356 billion miles. So that's how many miles have been driven in autopilot. And we know how many deaths there have been in Teslas driving on autopilot. There have been 4 in the world. So if we do the math, we see that there's 1 death for every 339 million miles driven in autopilot. Now let's compare that data to the number of deaths on U.S. roads last year with cars that have no autopilot. So NHTSA's data shows that there were 40,000 U.S. traffic deaths last year with 3.2 trillion miles driven.
So that's 1 death for every 80 million miles driven.
So remember what we said before, cars driven on autopilot, on Tesla autopilot, there was 1 death for every 339 million miles.
Right.
So let's compare that number to make it make sense.
What that means is that driving on Tesla autopilot is 4.2 times safer than driving manually.
Right. So Elon can easily say, I am on high moral ground. You get into a car and you put it on autopilot, you're 4.2 times safer than the average driver in the United States. Right. And let's try and wrap your head around that number better. That means that instead of last year there being 40,000 deaths on the road, what if everyone had been driving in a Tesla autopilot car with autopilot engaged? How many deaths would have been saved?
30,513. That's how many are saved. That's not how many deaths there would be. That's how many lives would have been saved if everyone had been driving on autopilot. Now, of course, not everyone. You can't just turn on autopilot and, go take all sorts of turns and stuff like that. But statistically, if we look at this statistically, if everyone had been driving on Tesla autopilot last year, we would have saved the same number of people that live in Poughkeepsie, New York, an entire town. Imagine for a moment you have the option to save an entire town from being destroyed by a meteorite, right? You know that it's happening, you evacuate the whole town, and you save all those lives. That is what autopilot is. It's literally 4.2 times safer with the current data that we have.
But do you realize what the media does?
Right.
The mass media puts out this story, keeps showing you a death in a Tesla, and doesn't give you the context.
Right.
So you have no way to judge. You're just like, oh, I don't know. I've been hearing a lot about deaths in Teslas. There have been 4 on autopilot. And at the same time, there have been hundreds and thousands of deaths that had nothing to do with autopilot, that were in just regular cars. We have 40,000 deaths in the U.S. every year. But you know what? Let's not just think about the U.S. In the world, there are over 1 million deaths every year.
And I also want to point out that these 4 deaths have happened in the past 3 years on different versions of autopilot. Autopilot has been getting progressively better, and there have been more and more Teslas on the road.
Right. I mean, we gave you this number to give you some sense of what's going on, but it's actually way safer than that. It's just we wanted to be ultra conservative.
Right. These are bulletproof numbers. Anyone can do their own research. With 4 deaths and the number of autopilot miles, and again, we're putting the sources down below. You can go see Lex Friedman's numbers on the number of autopilot miles that Tesla has, and you can go look at NHTSA's data on U.S. traffic deaths, and you can also find the number of miles that Americans drive every year.
Yeah.
And you can put that all together. We did that. It's not like we have some access to some magic, sorcery statistical textbook. No. This took maybe 10 minutes of Googling. I am so mad that not all other forms of media decided to do that. None of them did that. No one does the math.
They don't want to do the math. They want to give you the FUD.
Right.
So on a recent Model 3 Euro road trip, I was in Amsterdam and I visited Arne Kloppenborg. He's the founder and CEO of New Electric, a company that converts cars and boats from ICE to all electric. So fascinating and inspiring. Here's a short clip, but we released the full interview last week and you should really watch it. All right, we're about to arrive at New Electric in Amsterdam, and I found out about Anne and New Electric when I was watching Fully Charged. And the second I saw it, literally the second I saw the episode, I dropped what I was doing, emailed Anne, and I was like, I'm going to be in Europe. I have to meet with you. Now, you can imagine when that episode came out, so many people must have reached out to him. I know they did. So he probably got just inundated with emails. So for a little while, I didn't hear from him, and I was like, oh, well, that's not going to happen. And then he reached out and said, sorry, I was just wading through the bazillions of emails that came in. I saw your email. I definitely want to meet. And so we're going to go meet him, and I'm so excited that we are. So can I just tell you?
Yeah.
Not a joke. I saw you on Fully Charged.
Yeah.
I was watching the video. About halfway through, I stopped the video and started
Right in the middle.
and I was like, please, and I wasn't the first to watch it. Like, it wasn't the day it came out.
Yeah,
so I was
right.
crap, I know that 1 million people are contacting you.
Everybody's doing it. Yeah,
and you must have gotten deluged from.
No, for sure. We're still kind of picking up because it's always the same thing. It's like a small company, not enough time, and then suddenly you clamor for a bit of attention, you get it, and then there's no way that you have the kind of organization that can nicely funnel all that attention into something functional. But we try.
Well, tell me about the attention that you got. Did you get lots of people who were like, I want my Jaguar to have a motor in it?
It's a whole combination of things. I mean, a lot of people just really reaching out and saying like, hey, you guys are doing a great job.
That's awesome.
Keep it up, or thanks for like doing something inspirational. And I got to tell you that, that's just like manna. Getting that response now really shows that there's a lot of people ready for this message. And it used to be a little bit different. It's either, there was maybe the tree hugger aspect, or there was, but otherwise there wasn't really much going on for electrics. If the message is that gas and, all combustion engines are bad and they're polluting, then the message is that people are doing the wrong thing. And that is immediately going to lead to a response like, heck no, I didn't even have a choice. Right. And now you're blaming me for stuff.
Yeah.
I'm getting angry.
Yep.
So whatever you're saying after this,
I don't want to hear you.
I'm like all riled up and I'm not going to like you.
Yep.
And so the message really has to be like, we all had no choice. We understand. Look at this cool new shiny toy, and then try and walk away from the past.
I love that. So it's okay that you owned a Jaguar.
Fantastic.
Now, as I was talking to some people in Belgium the other day, a friend of mine said that his father has a 1999 Stratus, Dodge Stratus, and it's sitting in the garage, can't do much with it, something's broken or whatever, but he loves the car. Obviously, I think everyone probably at some point or other has a car like that. Tell our viewers, what can be done with that 1999 Dodge Stratus?
Well, the reality is it doesn't need to go, and there's different ways of going. I mean, there's going to be us or some other places where you can basically drop off the car and the keys and come back and have her be fully electric, and that possibility is there. So it remains your 1999 car, your 1979 car. It's just that from the fuel code will go from B or D for benzene or diesel to E for electric.
All right, so Ani just said that we can go for a little spin in the Jaguar. Of course, we're not going to turn that down. So how many kilowatts is it again?
So this motor itself is a 100 kilowatt peak system.
Okay.
About 45 kilowatt continuous.
Okay.
So even a heavy car like this, it can run, 110, 120 kilometers an hour continuously without any problem. But it has a little bit higher peak for acceleration and some giggles. And,
some giggles.
Yeah, you gotta have the fun.
Do you see why I was so excited to visit Anne? What they're doing at New Electric is so incredible. They are breaking new ground. They are making it so that the next generation of people who want to do this are going to be able to do it so much easier, because he's going through, do you realize all the technical things that he has to figure out to make that Jaguar run? It's not easy. It's not just like plopping in a motor and a battery. He had to figure out every single detail, and that is incredible. The brain power that it takes to do it, the enthusiasm, the energy, I'm just speechless after visiting him. I'm so glad that we got a chance to go to New Electric today. Thank you so much for coming along. Now you know. Yeah, he's so inspiring. This was just a short clip, but I think he should run for president, because he really gets it, and he's doing such amazing work there. It's so fun to go to a place where there's just batteries everywhere and motors and cars up on lifts. It's really a lot of fun.
So similar to the autopilot accident, another Tesla news story that's been floating around the internet is this Shanghai a battery fire, which seemed to have started for no reason. It got shared throughout the entire internet. Everyone's saying, oh my gosh, Teslas just catch on fire for no reason.
Yeah, and I think we should go to Tesla for what their response is. They said, our team was on the site to offer support to our customer and establish the facts of this incident. We are glad that everyone is safe. While our investigation with authorities is ongoing, we have found that only a few battery modules were affected and the majority of the battery pack is undamaged. Tesla battery packs are engineered with the state-of-the-art design so that in the very rare instance a fire does occur, it spreads very slowly and vents heat away from the cabin, alerting occupants that there is an issue and giving them enough time to exit the vehicle. The safety of our customers is our top priority, and if we do identify an issue, we will do whatever is necessary to address it. We currently have well over 500,000 vehicles on the road, which is more than double the number that we had at the beginning of last year, and Tesla's team of battery experts uses that data to thoroughly investigate incidents that occur and understand the root cause. Although fire incidents involving Tesla vehicles are already extremely rare and our cars are 10 times less likely to experience a fire than a gas car, we believe the right number of incidents to aspire to is 0. As we continue our investigation of the root cause, out of an abundance of caution, we are revising charge and thermal management settings on Model S and Model X vehicles via an over-the-air software update that will begin rolling out today to help further protect the battery and improve battery longevity.
So there's a lot of things that I want to talk about here. First of all is statistics, which I know gets taught in schools, but is usually just like top about gumballs. Like, oh, what are the chances of you getting a red gumball from the gumball machine? I don't know if you guys had like better math teachers than the majority of, it seems, all Americans and perhaps even other people in the rest of the world. But we're very bad as humans at understanding statistics. We are very easily led with anecdotes, I think because as humans, we're supposed to be in like smaller tribes, and an anecdote is supposed to be a pretty significant, like, oh, well, Johnny ate those berries and he died. I shouldn't eat those berries. They're probably poisonous.
Right.
So 10 times less likely to experience a fire than a gas car.
Well, and I think a lot of people would stop you at that point and go, well, if that was true, I'd be seeing fires all over the place. Yeah, you know what? It got so boring to show them on the news that they stopped putting them on the news.
Right. It's pretty rare that we see... there are still news stories of cars catching on fire, and usually journalists do a pretty good job of grouping them all together, being like, a lot of BMWs are all catching on fire in Korea.
Right.
I wonder what's going on. And that was a news story some months ago where hundreds of BMWs were catching on fire in South Korea.
Right. But, I mean, ICE cars, by their very nature, are carrying around a flammable liquid, and they catch on fire all the time, sometimes in an accident, sometimes not even in an accident.
Right.
That's what happens. And it's gotten so commonplace and so boring over the decades that we just dismiss it. So that when an electric car catches on fire, we're like, oh, that's a new kind of fire.
That's a new kind of interesting
I'd
story.
like to watch that.
Let's cover it.
Yeah.
And so it gets a lot more media attention than a normal gas car fire because... yeah, it is so commonplace and boring that we just don't hear about them.
Here's the other part. When a gas car does catch on fire, it can explode. And firefighters, if you watch them at any scene of a fire, they know that's going to happen. So they get ready for that to happen or try and keep it from happening.
Right.
With Teslas, the battery pack is designed, like they just said in the statement, to be thermally controlled if there is a fire. So you have time to get out of the cabin, and it's supposed to basically put itself out. So that's a huge difference. There may be a fire, but it's not usually going to lead to an explosion.
And lead to a death.
Right.
Which this fire did not lead to a death.
No.
It's just that it was caught on camera.
Right.
And is a very interesting media story, and so it gets covered. The other interesting point, the point that nobody talks much about, is that with a software update, over-the-air update, you don't have to bring it to a dealership and they have to replace anything or plug anything in. Over-the-air update, that risk, I guess, just got mitigated.
Right.
Most car companies, when they know that they have a problem with one of their cars of a certain model year, they don't fix it unless they have to fix it.
Right.
They do a cost-benefit analysis and they say, okay, you know, what are the costs? How many people are going to die because of this problem?
Right.
And then they say, okay, and how much would it cost for us to fix it? And then they go, I'm not sure whether we're going to fix it or not because, I don't know, it would cost more money than it would be to just pay off the dead people's families.
Yep, that's easier.
That's easier. That's what we're going to go with. So those people will die, but we'll make our money. So it's all good in the end. I like that the Tesla spokesperson says that the ideal number of Tesla fires are 0.
Right.
And they're working towards that. This is a new technology. We've been making gas cars for like 100 years, and they still catch on fire.
Right.
You'd think we would have ironed out that detail by this point.
Right.
I guess it is pretty hard when you're pumping flammable and explosive liquid into a big tank
Right.
in a car to keep it from catching on fire. I understand that. But lithium-ion batteries have not been in cars since, like, less than 10 years ago.
Right. The other key point here is that the over-the-air update is not going to impede on the speed with which you'll be able to charge at Supercharger. So it's not like you're even going to really notice what they've done. They've just modified how they're handling the battery temperatures. Right. Well, and here's another statistic that might get lost on you. Let's compare two things. Let's compare EV fires to oil spills. How many oil spills do you think there were in the U.S. last year?
I don't remember hearing about that many. Maybe, I heard about some, so maybe 10.
137. There was 137 oil spills in the U.S. last year. The largest spill was caused by an explosion at a refinery in Superior, Wisconsin, where 11 people were injured and 2.1 million gallons of oil were released. Louisiana had 52 spills. Texas had 13. Alaska had 10. New Jersey and Massachusetts had 6 each.
I live in Massachusetts.
Yeah, those were off the coast in the waters off of our beautiful states. Yeah, just oil dumped into the water.
Oh, I didn't hear about that.
Yeah, and this is more than all the EV battery fires we had last year. But yet, like you said, you didn't hear about it. You know why?
Wait, there were less than 137 EV battery fires? 137. Because I've read more articles than I think 137.
Nope. It's just because that anecdotal effect, that fact that you saw them on the news and they're on fire was so much more exciting than when they didn't report to you all of the oil spills that there were. And that's what we mean about statistics.
And okay, but then an oil spill is like way worse than a battery fire.
Well, look at that one in Wisconsin. It injured 11 people because the place blew up. And that's not even counting the environmental damage.
Exactly. I'm just saying, worst
most
case,
of these,
a battery fire is going to kill you in your car, which has not happened yet.
Exactly.
No one has died in a Tesla due to a battery fire that wasn't caused by a collision.
Right.
That didn't also have the compounded problem of a collision. So
it's FUD.
Yeah. Could we talk about the oil spills, please?
Exactly.
Is it just that oil spills are so boring at this point that we don't talk about them?
Exactly.
Ridiculous.
Yes. So, U.S. District Judge Charles Breyer asked the SEC in court, quote, "My basic question is, what took you so long?" Adding that he was totally mystified why the SEC waited until 2019.
Oh, boy. So, Elon's in trouble again with the SEC?
No, this has nothing to do with Elon. This is in regards to the SEC's lateness in suing VW more than 2 years after the company settled the Justice Department's criminal probe, pleading guilty to 3 felonies and paying $4.3 billion in penalties.
Okay, but the SEC is only in charge of tweeting, right?
Nope. They're in charge of securities that trade in this country, and VW is a stock that sells bonds and trades in this country. Yeah, so VW issued more than $13 billion in bonds and securities in the U.S. markets at a time when senior executives at VW knew that more than 500,000 U.S. diesel vehicles grossly exceeded legal vehicle emission limits, is what was in the SEC complaint. But the judge went on to say, "I want to remind you that the symbol of the SEC is the symbol right up there of the eagle. It's not a carrion hawk that simply descends when everything is all over and sees what it can get from the defendant." Breyer directed the SEC to explain by July precisely when the agency learned of the factual allegations and to file its reasoning for waiting until March of this year to file this complaint.
VW has been in the news.
They've been busy. The SEC is very busy. They have to watch Elon's tweets every day. They have to see if any of them are worthy of lawsuits. That takes a lot of time.
But April of this year, about the diesel scandal, which happened years ago.
That's not a big deal. It's more important to get tweets.
They already had to pay $4.3 billion in settlements, and they've been issuing, doing all of this, issuing bonds and securities when they knew that basically they were committing fraud.
Yeah, but
that seems like what the SEC should be worried about.
No, they should be worried about tweets.
This is it's insane. This is insane. I'm so glad that the judge is like, excuse me. I am so glad I can't wait to hear what they have to present in July.
They're probably going to be like,
we had a pool party scheduled, and then then Elon tweeted about something.
that kept us
And we were very busy.
What could have possibly taken that long? That's your job.
You're forgetting one little word.
What?
Corruption. Do you need some good news?
Yes.
Tesla completes their Maxwell acquisition.
Thank God.
So
okay.
you remember Maxwell Technologies?
Yes.
This is a small battery company that's been working on ultracapacitors and dry electrode technology. So what does that mean? I think it's pretty important. A lot of people might have glossed over that. So Maxwell's dry battery electrode technology is a different way than Tesla is currently making batteries. Currently, they do it in kind of a soup, and they need to dry that solvent, which takes a lot of energy to dry it, and then that solvent is something you have to capture and get rid of, and it's a long, messy process. The Maxwell's dry electrode technology will allow them to make batteries supposedly faster, cheaper. They'll have more energy density. They'll be able to have more cycles, and they'll probably have less environmental concerns because you won't need the solvents and all the heat. Tesla just finished closing on that deal. And so if you were a Maxwell Technologies stockholder, you just got some Tesla shares. You got 0.0193 shares for every share of your Maxwell stock. And so that totaled $230 million of Tesla stock. No cash was outlaid for the purchase.
Cool. So it's done. They did
done.
it.
Deal's done.
So okay.
And don't forget that for the past few months, there's been so many pundits saying like, oh, that deal is not going to go through because the shareholders don't like the price.
Oh, there was a lawsuit about the Maxwell technology. It's like, yeah, most acquisitions are not this sort of clean, like, oh, everyone is on board. We will all be acquisitioned. You know, there's usually people who are upset about acquisitions because it's a big change.
But 79% of Maxwell stockholders turned in their stock in exchange for the Tesla stock. So deal is done.
That is awesome.
It is awesome.
So, I mean, first of all, you're getting this cool battery technology, which could be saving Tesla a lot of money.
Yep, and making better batteries.
Making better batteries. And what does this mean for Panasonic? Because right now, Panasonic has been making Tesla's batteries in Tesla's Gigafactory. Now Tesla has their own battery technology, which is theirs, because they've been using Panasonic's battery technology, which Panasonic owns all the rights to.
Right. I mean, there's a handoff in the factory where basically at the Gigafactory, Panasonic hands off the batteries to Tesla and is like, here you go. Yeah, I think this puts Tesla in a fantastic position. It's a great bargaining position to be in if they want to keep working with Panasonic. And if they don't want to keep working with Panasonic, they can start to make batteries themselves and not be sued because they'll have their own intellectual property.
Now, one of the things that's been happening with some of the other car manufacturers is that they are beginning to pour money into infrastructure for battery factories.
Right.
And what's happened is companies like LG Chem and CATL are saying, oh, you want to do that? We're going to stop giving you batteries right now.
Right.
And that's forced a lot of these companies to kind of backpedal and be like, well, okay, all right, we'll do some, we'll sign some kind of deal where you're going to be making batteries for us for a long time.
Right.
Because obviously these battery manufacturers do not want the auto manufacturers to be making the batteries because that's their job.
Right.
So is Panasonic going to be doing the same thing to Tesla? Because, I mean, can they? Because right now, most other auto manufacturers are not making the same number of electric cars as Tesla is. Tesla is making far and away more electric cars than all the other car manufacturers combined.
Right.
So what's Panasonic going to do? Going to be like, oh, screw you guys, Tesla. We're going to sell all of our batteries to you guys over there, I guess.
Yeah, it's not 100% clear. I think Panasonic, I mean, from their latest statements, definitely wants to work with Tesla. I think they know that that's a great partnership for them. But this puts Tesla in a fantastic position. They could license this technology to Panasonic if they want to, or they could just start making them themselves.
I think vertically integrated is the name of the game for Tesla.
Agree.
It seems like they're going to start working on this dry cell battery technology, which is just fantastic. It means potentially bigger ranges.
Yeah. And let's not forget the ultracapacitors. If you put ultracapacitors into a truck or the Roadster, you're going to get the ability to get power back from your brake regeneration really fast, which is something the existing batteries have trouble doing. And when you need power fast, you've got it right there.
And it lowers the amount of cycles that you're going to be putting on your batteries, which increases longevity of your battery packs.
Yeah, if you want all this information, actually, we already covered it in our in-depth on the Maxwell Technologies buyout, which you can check out right below. All right, it's time for the lightning round.
Here we go.
Check this out. The first autonomous boat journey. According to Seakit International Limited's Ben Simpson, the Seakit Maxlimmer made the first commercial crossing of the North Sea by an autonomous vessel. This 12-meter-long uncrewed surface vessel made the journey from the UK to Belgium on May 7th, carrying a box of oysters.
Ben Simpson said, "This voyage has been months in the making, and to see it all come together is amazing. The USV's potential lies in its ability to be adapted to a range of tasks, whether it be transit, hydrographic surveys, environmental missions, or marine safety and security. We are tremendously excited to push the technology to its limits to see what we can achieve."
And right now, as we speak, it's making its return voyage with a consignment of Belgian beer. So you know that argument you get from a lot of people who don't want to put solar panels on the roofs? What's one of the biggest arguments?
That they don't like the look of solar panels.
Yep. And the next big argument?
When I go to sell my house, I might not mind the look of solar panels, but the potential buyers might mind the look of solar panels, which means that it lowers the value of my house.
Turns out that homes with solar panels sold for a 4.1% premium over comparable homes on average.
And this is according to who?
This is according to a recent Zillow analysis that controlled for observable attributes such as the number of bedrooms and bathrooms, square footage, age of the home, and location. So, for instance, in New York and Los Angeles, that translated to more than a $23,000 bump in the average sale price.
How much does a solar system usually cost to install? Like, if you are paying for it all out of pocket.
Yeah, the average system is between usually $20,000 and $30,000.
But it makes your house go up in value by $23,000.
Right.
And you're getting free energy.
Exactly. That's just money we're talking about. We're not talking about the fact that you just made the world a better place with green energy.
Of course.
Exactly. But the other big argument people have against solar is they usually say, well, what about when the solar panels are done and you have to throw them in the landfill?
You have to throw them in the landfill?
Yeah, because you can't recycle them, man.
Well, that's not true. So there's this company, Veolia Group, which recycles panels into about 10 components with a 95% valorization rate. So basically 95% of the capital that goes into making a solar panel, they can get out of it. So for a $100 solar panel, they make $95 back out of the... And obviously this is a $100 solar panel new. Now you have one that has been used and you're recycling it and getting 95% of the money back out of it.
Yeah, I mean, I was interested to see that in a minute to a minute and a half per panel, you can get all of the components back, 10 different components. So like 65% is glass, 10% is plastic, there's a bunch of aluminum, and then the rest are some minerals. So if you care so much about recycling the panels, which you should, then how about just pass a law to force them to be recycled? And if you're going to pass that law, I think part of that law should be to force all the other electronics to be recycled. How about your large screen television or your computer? Because those things still contain very valuable minerals and things that are bad for the environment, but we don't seem to talk about that when everyone's going out buying all of them. So we've mentioned this before on the show. Internal 1982 documents from Exxon Research and Engineering Company obtained by Inside Climate News as part of their 2015 investigation into what Exxon knew about the impact of fossil fuels on climate change. They found out that the company was modeling out the concentration of carbon emissions several years into the future, and according to a graph displayed here called Growth of Atmospheric CO2 and Average Global Temperature Increase, over time, the company expected that by 2020, carbon dioxide in the atmosphere would reach roughly 400 to 420 parts per million.
I mean, it was the 80s. What do they know? They didn't know anything.
Actually, take a look at this graph here. They were right on the money. For the first time in human history, on May 11th, we hit 415 parts per million of CO2. This is the first time in 3 million years, according to the Keeley curve, which is a daily record of atmospheric carbon dioxide that's been taken since 1958 from the Scripps Institution of Oceanography at UC San Diego.
One, that's not good.
No,
right?
It's not.
That's bad. Secondly, Exxon knew that was going to happen.
They knew it to the T.
I mean, practically down to the part per million.
Yeah. They knew exactly what was happening, and they then switched it on us and basically lied to all of us and said, don't listen to scientists. There's nothing bad happening. Don't worry. They knew what was happening.
What they did was they went, okay, we know all this stuff. We got to trick everyone.
Yep.
We can't let people know this stuff.
And when you think we're crazy and we're like, well, why would they do that?
Right.
We just told you why. They're getting $650 billion a year. So we started mentioning this idea of not calling climate change anymore. And you remember that Greta Thunberg, the climate activist, said the same thing. Well, The Guardian is now saying the same thing. They won't be calling it climate change anymore. They will be calling it climate emergency, climate crisis or climate breakdown. And they won't be calling it global warming anymore. They'll be calling it global heating. The Guardian's editor-in-chief, Catherine Viner, said, "We want to ensure that we are being scientifically precise while also communicating clearly with readers on this very important issue. The phrase climate change, for example, sounds rather passive and gentle when what scientists are talking about is a catastrophe for humanity."
Right. And I think that this is important. Climate change came from
The oil company.
the oil companies, because of course it did. They said, what is our fallback position? Okay, we'll admit that the climate is, Bob, what's a good word? Change. Great. The climate is changing. Climate crisis. That sounds bad.
Right.
It is bad. We should call it as such.
Yep. So here's another one of those stories that you can easily make into a FUD story. A driver in Amenz, Netherlands, fell asleep on Thursday while driving drunk on autopilot on the highway. Police approached and woke him up. So we demonstrated this kind of thing that could happen on an episode that we released last Wednesday, right? You fell asleep.
Lost consciousness. The car, as safely as it could legally, came to a stop on the highway, hazards on and everything, which is exactly the safest thing the car could do, right? You can't just continue driving down the road. Something bad could happen. Right. Coming to a stop is probably the safest thing. Exactly what happened here. The car safely came to a stop. This guy was driving drunk and then he fell asleep. Police were able to just walk up to the car and arrest him.
And the story should be that Tesla saved this driver from getting into an accident and possibly killing himself and others. People drive drunk every day. In fact, just in the US, 29 people die in car crashes every day where a drunk driver is involved. That's one death every 50 minutes. In fact, one person probably died while you watched this episode. And there's 800 who are injured every day just in the US because of drunk driving. So if you are talking about this story as if,
well, Tesla allowed him to get in the car drunk, and he wouldn't have done that if it weren't a Tesla.
bullcrap.
Yeah, he was drunk. You think he's going to be making any sort of good decision? He wasn't sitting there being like, well, let me think logically about this. I can get in the car and I can drive me to my house. He was drunk. He was not going to make good decisions whether he had autopilot or not. So many people drive drunk. People are going to drive drunk. That is an unfortunate fact.
Right.
Someday,
It won't matter.
it won't matter. You would be able to just get in a car and it will drive you drunk.
Right.
Wherever you want to go.
Check this out, Jesse. This is the Piston Bully 100E. It's a electric snow groomer. You know, like when you're going skiing, you want the slopes to look nice. This is the thing for you. Now, this is not for sale yet. They're testing this out, but it has some pretty cool stats. It has a 126 kilowatt hour battery. And according to Piston Bully, it can go for 2.5 to 3 hours of average driving time before it needs to be charged. And when it does need to be charged, it takes about 5 hours to do a 75% charge.
And this is really impressive because, I mean, this has to go up and down ski slopes. So
yeah.
it's not just like
And push
on
snow.
the roads.
Right.
This is going up and down a mountain
In cold weather.
and pushing snow.
The cool thing is that Piston Bully, which is a German company, has a 60% market share in ski slope and trail preparation. So if they can get this to work, we could start seeing ski slopes everywhere starting to buy electric ski groomers.
Fantastic.
But here's a sad one.
Oh, no.
A new study published last week in The Lancet shows that 40 million new asthma cases annually could be attributable to nitrogen dioxide, which is pollution that comes from cars. And here's an interesting thing. 92% of these pediatric asthma incidences were caused by nitrogen dioxide exposure, where the annual average nitrogen dioxide concentrations were lower than WHO guidelines of 21 parts per billion. Now, when I first read that, I had to read it again and again.
Yeah.
Because it means that most people getting asthma are getting them in places where the World Health Organization says your air is fine.
So that's not good.
That's not good. That means that their standard of 21 parts per billion is wrong. It's not good for you to have that much nitrogen dioxide in the air.
Right. The standard should be a lot stricter.
Right.
And that means that we should be a little bit more protective over our air and not just be like, oh, you wanna drive a big diesel truck? Oh, that's fine. It doesn't matter that you're, spewing a bunch of nitrogen dioxide into the air all around my house or all around anyone's house. It should be like, no, that's bad. You can't drive that. Sorry.
Right.
There are alternatives. We're going to have to do those.
Yeah, here's a quote from the report. Global pediatric asthma prevalence has increased strikingly since the 1950s. Asthma is now the most commonly reported non-communicable disease among children worldwide.
Oh, great. So since the 1950s, I wonder why.
What happened in the 1950s?
I don't know.
Automobiles.
Right. Hello. And great. So we're just poisoning our children.
I think from now on,
isn't that lovely.
I think from now on, when you buy a new car, on the sticker that tells you how fuel efficient it is and stuff, it should also have how many people it's going to give asthma to.
Right. Oh, how many children am I going to give asthma to? Oh, 7?
Oh, honey, this one over here only gives 7 people asthma.
Oh.
How much does that one give?
Oh, this one's at 11.
Oh, well, let's get this one
Right.
instead.
That actually might work because you might be like, oh, and this Tesla over here has 0.
Right.
Hello? Hello? Hello, McFly.
So it's time for our video contributor stories, and I just want to give a little plug here. If you've got a story you want to tell about something going on in your world, please let us know about it so we can get you on the air. So this week, we've got an interesting story from Eric and his Tesla family.
Hi guys, my name's Eric Clifton. I'm a full-time engineer and part-time Uber driver in Seattle, Washington. I enjoy giving people rides, many of them their first time in a Tesla. It also gives me a mouthpiece to talk about green energy, sustainability, and Tesla vehicles.
One of the things I love going on about is the work my father and brother do designing zero-energy homes. I met up with them and asked them a few questions.
I'm Ted with TC Legend Homes and Powerhouse Designs.
And I'm Ted with Zero Energy Plans and CVH Incorporated.
So how long have you guys been designing zero-energy homes?
I realized in about 2004 that the homes that I was already designing were capable of getting to zero energy. So since 2004, 2005, I've been designing for zero energy right off the get-go.
And I think my first zero energy home was in 2009, 2010, when we did the house in Ballard.
Yep.
And that was one you designed. And the folks are having a hard time finding a builder that could build for their price tag. And after that, got really excited about the potential of building zero energy houses for pretty much any budget.
What are some of the benefits of building zero energy?
And one of the benefits is you don't have a power bill. And like in my house where we're sitting right now, the house also powers up to 3 electric cars. And so having a house that not only supports itself and is carbon neutral, but can also power your transportation is a serious advantage.
I think the most important thing about having a zero energy house that also powers your car is that you're on the right side of a lot of equations. If you are concerned about global climate change, you're on the right side of that equation. If you're concerned about the supply of oil and gas that's going to run out someday, it doesn't matter if it's 50 years or 500 years from now, we're going to run out of a fixed finite resource. You're on the right side of that equation if you're providing all of your own resource with the solar energy that lands on your roof. So we like what we do.
Isn't that nice?
Yeah.
Him and his brother and his dad, they're doing awesome things for the world.
I
and
want
they're-
a zero energy home.
I know.
Sounds cool.
It sounds like they're all over the country.
I also wanted to be on the back of a Tesla truck.
Maybe they can do that for us.
Ooh.
Let's talk to Eric about it.
All right.
All right, it's time for our Patreon bonus stories. If you're new to the channel, you might be like, what the heck is that, guys?
Basically, if you support this channel for $1 or more a month on Patreon, you have access to these Patreon bonus stories. Every week we have Patreon bonus stories, which means that it's a quarter per Patreon bonus stories because there's roughly 4 weeks in a month.
On the bonus stories this week, we've got Audi says electric isn't for you.
Bill Nye explains the climate crisis.
And we're going to show you where Jesse works. So come along. Hey, we're back from our Patreon bonus stories, and it's time for our shout-outs. These are people who give us $5 or more a month. They get to go up on our end credits because we love them so much. Who do we got this week, Jess?
We have Andrew De Lorenzo,
Graham Domkins,
Nick Byers,
Matthias Holthendahl Thorpe,
Roger Lincoln Holker,
Jeroen Bequis,
James Holmes,
Peter C. Beatty,
David Sy,
Paul Kelly,
Christopher Monday,
and Frank Asada.
Thank you so much for helping to support this show. This show would not happen without people that we just mentioned.
It's time for Elon's Tweets of the Week. This one I know you're excited about. This is a
Yes.
whole conversation. Just keeps going on
So
and on.
people were wondering when there's going to be more games on the Tesla screen.
Yep, and Elon said, lots more games coming once we finish porting Unity. Now, can you help us with that? 'Cause,
Yeah, so Unity
I'm
is-
over 40, so I don't know what you're talking about.
Unity is a gaming engine. It's actually, I believe it's open source, which means that people can make games on it very easily. And there are many, 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 many games on Unity that use the Unity engine. So if they've ported Unity to the cars, it means that you can play those games on there. So it's actually some 3-dimensional games, not just like, not just arcade games.
Okay, so let's see what else he said. He said, interact with games via touchscreen steering wheel buttons and Xbox PS controllers. We definitely need racing game using actual car steering wheel and pedals. I'm down with that. That would be awesome. Just make sure you're in park first. And then also porting Unreal Engine. Again, what's that?
So that's another gaming engine. That is a very big game engine. So, I mean, there are many, many games that use it.
Okay. Then Jamie Timmerans said, if you do port Unity, can we start building new games for Teslas? Elon said.
Sure.
But we're not done yet.
Oh, right, yeah.
Mikey said, nominating some version of Portal for Tesla, please and thanks. Elon said, Portal 1 and 2 on this would rock. Asimo 3089 said, how about Roblox on Tesla? And Elon said, would be great to have Roblox and Minecraft.
You know, you have this powerful computer. What do we do with most of our powerful computers in our daily lives is we play games on them. You want to play games on basically anything, and I think that it's really smart to do it on a Tesla because, first of all, everyone's going to be insanely jealous of you being able to just play games whenever you want, and then whenever you're charging your car, whenever you're
but how cool is that? You're going to be able to do driving games where you're actually going to, I mean, that's the most expensive thing I can.
And this is why I think that the Teslas, after they come up with level 5 autonomy, the Teslas that have the steering wheel and the pedals are still going to be pretty sought after. You're not going to want to cap those because you can play racing games while you're stuck in traffic. Which is going to look hilarious, by the way. You're going to be there like, and we're just like,
what is he doing?
What is this guy doing? I don't know if you can only drive electric cars in whatever game you're playing, because that would be funny. You're just hearing this engine noise going on, because I mean it's got a great sound system.
Yeah,
I would actually love to play some like Formula One, recreations with this sound system blaring in my face.
This tweet about Starlink, Elon said Starlink mission would be heaviest SpaceX payload ever at 18.5 tons. If all goes well, each launch of 60 satellites will generate more power than space station and deliver 1 terabit of bandwidth to Earth. Inky Line said, I have only one criticism, and before that I'd like to make it clear that I love everything to do with SpaceX, Tesla, and Solar City, but I'm concerned about space debris. Is it possible to invent a way to use satellites to collect old satellite debris to balance or reduce debris? And Elon said, yes. Easy to turn one of our Starlink satellites into a debris collector.
Interesting.
Easy to do that.
Easy?
Yes, I knew that. That's easy.
Is it?
What is he talking about?
Well, I mean,
so the satellite can go around with the net and clean up the orbit?
I think what you could do is kind of do like a 1-for-1 trade. So like at the end of your Starlink's life,
blow it up and
no, you'd sort of send it onto like a slow collision course with something else. And then their net velocities could potentially be lower.
And then it would drop to Earth?
Then it could drop to Earth. I don't know if that's possible unless they were traveling in opposite ways, in which case that would not be a slow collision. I don't know.
All right. Well, but it's easy.
Elon says that it's easy, so I've only played Kerbal Space Program. Elon gets to play actual real space program. So what the heck do I know?
All right, it's time for Community Mail Time. This is Tim's new Model 3.
Nice.
And this is Nick's family ritual.
Oh, that's cute.
That is cute. And Patrick saw these on Pier 80 in San Francisco that was loaded with new Model 3s on their way to Europe.
Look at how many
You're welcome,
there
Europe.
are.
Yeah, look at that. Boat's coming. And Brian has his whole system set up. What system is this?
Nice. He's got his solar panels on the roof. He's got the power wall, and he's got his car charger.
Now, our friend Somi in British Columbia, Canada, reminded us that with super high gas prices of over $6 a gallon, people are thinking more and more about EVs and the $5,000 Canadian British Columbia provincial credit. But there was only about $10 million left in the account, and it could be gone in weeks. But since we've been talking, the provincial government has put a few $1 million more in the account. So yes, it's running out, but you do have some time. So go get yourself an electric car and get that tax credit. And then our friend Craig just tweeted at Elon. He said, Elon, games are fine, novelty. I want Advanced Summon to play with. And Elon said,
almost ready. I'm testing it personally this weekend. Yeah, Elon, he said that he was like releasing it next week, like a month ago.
Yeah.
And I have not gotten it, and I want it because I want to ride around in my dream case.
I know.
With Advanced Summon. I know that that's probably illegal, but I don't care.
All right, it's time for our on-air question of the week. Who do we got this week, Jesse?
This week we have Polly.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Zach and Jesse. Thanks for taking my call. Just kind of curious what your thoughts are on the stock and why it's going down and how much lower is it going to go?
Wouldn't that be good to know, huh?
Yeah.
I could make a lot of money if I could figure that out. I do think that we're probably at the bottom or near the bottom of where it's going to go. There's been so much FUD thrown at it. And don't forget that the big banks have just gotten involved recently. Basically, they're issuing shares for Tesla, right? So you got Goldman Sachs, you got Morgan Stanley. And I believe that these guys have been basically driving the stock lower so that they can, because they know that they're issuing stock right now and they want to get in low. It seems unfathomable, to have this be the most shorted stock still. It doesn't make any sense. But I got to say that this is just great buying opportunity. So if you're a long investor, this is still a great thing.
Communication and how things are communicated have a dramatic effect on that stock, right? And, seeing it go down, I just think I can't go any lower than this. And then Elon will tweet something and then it'll change, usually down. I don't, that's just really frustrating. And I am an investor. So I just, I jumped in when it went down a little bit below 60, and I thought, okay, that 260, and I thought that was good, and then it went lower and then lower. It's hard.
Yeah, don't get emotional. I mean, stock investing is not. You shouldn't be really watching it every day. Just know that once you're into a stock like this is a long-term play. I mean, unless you're a trader who's just trading on the ups and downs, which you can also do on the stock as well. I would argue that at these prices, you want to get in and stay on long because I think that we're in for a nice wild ride once it starts to take off.
Thinks.
The latest FUD is about the fact that Elon's like, the run rate is that we'd have, 10 months worth of cash. And so everyone jumps on that and says, oh my God, they're going to run out of cash in 10 months. He was saying it in a, if this were a startup and we were doing an actual run rate where you don't have any revenue. This company has revenue.
Right. Yeah, and then everybody takes that and runs with it, especially the short sellers. And they think it's, they're dying, they're going to be out of business. And, we all believe in the company, but, when these things happen, when he tweets these things like, or we hear the things about the company, they're going to be out of cash. We know that that's not the case. And I think part of the problem is Elon's a little emotional. Gets really tied into the company, and that has a dramatic effect on those short sellers, and they seem to swing the stock. And of course, there's all sorts of factors. It's just frustrating. That's all.
We haven't seen a stock like this that's been shorted this much. We don't understand how much power those shorts have to move the stock because there's so many of them. When you get over 20% of a company that's shorted, they can do a lot of price swings, and they are. And so it doesn't make much sense. And that's actually wonderful because that means that when it does bust out of this churn that it's going through, there's going to be no stopping it. Yeah, it harkens back to companies like Amazon that people didn't understand either, right? It did, they're burning money, they're burning cash. That's all you heard about that company for quarter after quarter. There's no profits. Why aren't they focusing on profitability? And then what happens? When they come out of that period of their company, they're able to go in this tremendous growth projections.
Truly believe it's going to be an Amazon stock. It's going to go gangbusters as soon as it flips.
Whenever you're feeling down, and I know I do too, go back and look at one of those stocks like Amazon, and you'll see all that churn at the beginning. And it just looks like nothing now because in contrast to where the stock is today, it looks just like these little ups and downs. At the time, those little ups and downs were very fear-inducing, right? But now they just seem like, wasn't that cute? Yeah, so stay long, stay strong.
Thanks, guys.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Polly. All right. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, that was a really good question because there's a lot of people out there right now who are thinking the exact same thing. How the heck is this happening? I thought I was getting a good deal at 260. Now it's at 228 or whatever. Like, what the heck?
All right, guys. Thanks so much. So you guys are doing a great job. Appreciate everything you do. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right, it's time for Supercharger reviews. This is where you go out into the world and you shoot those awesome reviews of destination chargers and superchargers. What do we got this week?
Let's take a look.
Hey, Zach and Jesse. We are at the brand new Urban Supercharger in downtown Indianapolis, Indiana. There are 12 stalls, and we basically have private parking. You just enter down there, park and charge, and exit right there. It is pay to park, but you're going to pay to park anywhere downtown, so that's not anything out of the ordinary. You get a charge while you wait, and you're right in the middle of downtown Indianapolis, Indiana. Back to you guys.
Hi, Zach and Jesse. This is Jamie Sullivan checking in at the Pearl Town Center Supercharger in Annapolis, Maryland. That's my beautiful blue Model 3 in the background there. This is an 8-stall charger. It's a little difficult to find because it's on the second floor of a parking garage. But once you get there, it's an excellent place because there's a Target right across the road. There's a Cuban restaurant, a pizza restaurant, some other restaurants. There's a Home Depot here. There's just a lot of options for ways to spend your time while your car is getting charged up. It's also very accessible to Maryland Route 50. So if you're headed out to the Eastern Shore, Delaware, Ocean City, it's a great place to get topped off before heading across the bridge. I would give this an 8 out of 10 just for its location and its accessibility and various shops and stuff. All right, love the show. Keep it up.
Hey, Zach and Jesse, this is Brian. I'm in North New Jersey at the Kearney Supercharger here at a Wawa. The Wawa's got pretty good food selection and a little grill back there, make sandwiches, burgers, that kind of thing. There are 8 total Superchargers here. 2 of them are pull-in and 6 of them are back in. Also, there's a Walmart and there's a Taco Bell across the street. It's all pretty accessible. An array of stores behind me there. It's a GameStop, a wine store, GNC. Bathrooms at the Wawa are good. Bathrooms at the Walmart are good. I give it 7 out of 10. Now you know.
Hey, Zach and Jesse. Thank you for all your support online. Really love watching your videos. My name is Aji. I'm over here at the Harris Teeter, Baltimore, Maryland Supercharger, 8-stall. I'll give it an 8 out of 10 just for convenience. My only issue is that sometimes other users won't let you park when you come here late at night. As you can see, it's fairly empty and someone's about to park. So it's a good location. Bye.
Fantastic.
Love it.
Excellent.
More of them. Go do more.
Please.
All right, what do we got for new Superchargers they can go review?
All right, well, we have some new ones. We have the 4-stall in Zareche, Russia, which is outside of Moscow. It is the first official Supercharger in Russia.
Now, I don't know if it's official. It didn't appear on the Tesla map yet, but it is a thing. So, yeah, I think there's one other Supercharger in Russia, but it doesn't appear on the map. So, if you're Russian, please let us know what's going on and go check out. I would love to have this one reviewed.
This is great because this is another culture whose city names I get to mispronounce.
All right, there's the 12-stall Urban in St. Charles, streets of St. Charles, Missouri.
The 12-stall Urban Supercharger in Anaheim Hills, California.
The 18-stall Urban in San Jose, Blossom Hill Road, California.
The 8-stall in Clare, Michigan.
And the 18-stall Urban in San Diego, Del Mar Heights Road, California.
It's the Patreon giveaway.
All right, it's time for our Patreon giveaway. Mm-hmm. We're going to be giving away this really cool EcoWare canvas bag.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see who we got.
Okay.
Yeah, and so you can go over to EcoWare and support this channel. We got t-shirts, we got bags, we got mugs. Look at this, matches the bag. Cool. All right, who's going to win this canvas tote bag?
The winner this week is Jeremy Schmidt.
Congratulations, Jeremy. You're the winner of this cool EcoWare tote bag. We'll get that off to you right away.
Every dollar that you support this show for gets you another name in the bin.
Yeah, increases your chances, basically.
Yes.
And you made it to the end of the show, and the names that you're seeing fly by here are the Patreons who have supported us for $5 or more. The big names are even more money they've supported us with. And without all these amazing people, over 2,000 people are our Patreon supporters. Right. Can you believe that, Jesse?
No.
We could not do the show.
I could hardly believe it when we had 300 people watching the show.
Yeah.
Just watching. And now we have 2,000 people supporting the show, actively supporting us, and it's fantastic because it means that we actually are able to, support this channel and do great things with it. You know, we don't just have to be like, okay, we're gonna maybe do the show this week. It's like, yes, we're definitely doing the show. We've done it for 141 weeks in a row. We have not missed a single week.
Right. No, it's pretty crazy, and I know a lot of people out there are thinking like, well, what are you gonna do with all this money that you're racking up? Right. First of all, we're not racking up any money. The money goes to making the show. What we are planning on doing is traveling around the world to meet all of you guys and show you amazing, cool products and amazing new things that are going on and share your stories. And that's what we're really working on now in our Discord, is we're building up a community of people who want to do community projects, who want to make their world a better place, but may not know how to do it, or may need tips, or may need encouragement.
Right.
And having a place where we can all start talking about how to get things done and how it worked in my community and how it might work in yours is super powerful, but we need you to be there. So to get there, how do you do it?
So you can support us on Patreon for $3 or more a month. And what that will give you access to is Discord, specifically our Discord server, which will give you access to all of the different channels. We're constantly talking about everything that's going on, Tesla and solar and battery and Tesla and SpaceX and Boring Company. And
there's a lot of smart people on there.
EVs in general related. Just everything constantly. We're constantly having conversations, constantly learning new things. It's amazing. We have people from all over the world, so they're able to take pictures. They're able to, of places where they live near. Right? It's just a side effect of having a global group of people is that the more people we add, there's just more dots on the map, which means that there's a higher chance that someone is going to live right next to a factory where they make the e-tron, and it just so happened, and then someone else lives right near a new solar installation that happened. So we get to actually have firsthand knowledge into this stuff, which is fantastic, because most people in most organizations don't necessarily have access to that unless they have a ton of money where they can be like, Bob, go out and take a look at whatever that thing is. We actually have that just by having so many of you actually willing to support us and communicate with a broader team of people.
And we've got one channel on there, which is the topic of community projects. And on that channel, I don't think we've even begun to realize how powerful this is. Throughout human history, there was no way for you to share ideas about how to do something in your community unless you happen to know someone who lived in a community.
Or wrote a book about it.
Right. And here we have up-to-the-minute information on how people are getting things done, what they're getting done, people that can inspire you, people that you can be like, you know what, keep me honest. Like, remind me every week to keep pushing hard. Like, that's super valuable, because we all get burnt out when we're trying to do things. You're not going to get solar panels on the roof of your high school next week. It takes a while. But having people there that are like coaxing you, pushing you, telling you can do it, telling you how they did it, super duper valuable.
Right.
And we've got that now. That's just incredible. So I urge you to come join us there on Discord. We're on there every day, chatting with people. We'd love to have you join us.
All right. And thank you so much for watching till the end of the show.
It was a long one this week.
It was definitely a long one this week. We definitely felt it. The sun has definitely moved. I know that you guys don't get to see inside the studio here, but we have windows, because this was supposed to be a greenhouse, but it turned into a photo studio or a filming studio. And the sun has moved. We have like cardboard and stuff all blocking out all the windows, because otherwise you'd have like these long shadows that would just start passing over us as we continue to talk and talk and talk. So thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next week. Now you know.